What's up, everybody? Thanks so much for joining today. We have a very exciting conversation today. Really fun drop happening tomorrow and over the next couple of weeks. And to talk about this drop, we're joined by our amazing friend of the podcast, UpUp Crypto. What's up, Jason? How you doing, buddy?
Glad to be here. Oh man, talk about this.
Yeah,
man,
we've been nerdy.
I'm super stoked about this drop, man. It's different. It's exciting. Oh, I can't wait to get into it, man. Can't wait.
We've been nerding out over this drop for at least a few days now, just talking off camera, and I'm so excited for this. It's going to be a lot of fun.
It is. So excited.
So I put together a little PowerPoint presentation. So there's been a lot of questions about what this drop's about. I know they made a really awesome Medium article. Jim Lee released a video as well, explaining the process of how this is done. But I thought we could dive into it a little more detail, talk about the actual drop itself, and also talk about our strategy and how we're going to approach this and what you should expect potentially. And again, everyone out there, just so you know, this is not financial advice. This is just for fun conversation, as always.
I'm out. Expect.
Yeah. But before we do that, I want to make sure everyone out there knows we're doing a giveaway. We're giving away these two awesome Miles Morales and Spider-Gwen PSA graded cards. The giveaway is pinned to our Twitter account at comicsandcrypto. And big shout out to our partner in the giveaway, Metaverse Life. We're going to give away these two cards to a lucky winner. Very excited to give these away.
That's awesome. I love those.
Actually, they're right over there. I probably should have brought them over here.
I entered. I want those.
Yeah. What's up, Omar? Thanks so much for joining. Prez, what's up, buddy? Thanks so much for having me on your channel yesterday. That was a lot of fun. It was so cool meeting the members of the Palm NFT team. Big shout out to them. Super nice people, and it was just so fun just to pick their brains on this and the process of what went behind it. So very excited for all of this. And yeah, thanks so much for joining. What's up, bud? Thanks so much for coming. And before we dive into the actual breakdown, I want everyone out there to know there is a huge auction happening right now, and it ends in 4 hours. This has been on auction at Golden for the past, I think, month, 3 or 4 weeks. But a Superman 7.0 grade is about to sell today. And right now, this thing's at $1.4 million. I think the record sales are around 2.2. So I'm very excited to see if this is going to surpass the previous sale and set a new record for this grade. And just so everyone out there knows too, this is the third highest grade. There's 2 7.0s, there's 1 8.0 and 1 8.5. And the 8.0 grade sold last year, maybe a year and a half ago, for $5.3 million. And to this day, it is the record for the highest selling public sale in history for a comic book, which is incredible. And in my opinion, humble opinion, still undervalued. Still undervalued. I mean, this comic book is one of the most significant in history by far. I mean, it's the first solo series for any superhero ever. It's incredible. Incredible.
Is this Sean, is this the 7.0 that was passed down to the children, the kids, that big collection?
It's funny you mentioned that. So we're blessed to actually interview Darren Watts recently, and I'm actually working on the interview right now. And Darren is an amazing guy. Big shout out to Darren and Adam. Adam's the director of the documentary they're making called Selling Superman. Very excited to advertise that in the podcast. That documentary is going to be awesome. Really cool guys. And Darren we actually told Darren about this, and he didn't know this was on auction. But it is not his. He actually still has it in his possession. I don't know if he plans to sell it or not. I don't think he does. But we'll see. Yeah, he loves Superman too. But this comic book was sold last year for a little over $2 million. So I'm very curious what it's going to go for, but it is not his comic. It's not his comic. So he'll definitely be watching this one closely.
Watching this one. It's going to be
yeah, definitely. All right, let's dive into it. So tomorrow, the Fastest Man Alive #1 is dropping, and this awesome image was created by Non-Fungible Talking. Big shout out to him for putting this together. I asked him if we could use this for the episode, and he let us. And make sure to follow him on YouTube as well. Really cool graphic that he put together. So this graphic basically explains the process of what this comic drop, what it is, and how it's going to go down. So basically, this comic is dropping tomorrow. There's going to be 5 different variants. There's going to be a present day, which is the common, the golden age, which is the uncommon, the silver age, which is the rare, and then the epic is Bronze Age, and then the legendary is the Modern Age. What's really cool, so this comic came out I think a couple years ago, and the common is actually the actual physical comic that was released, but the other 4 variants are original covers, the original artwork, which is really rad, really, really cool. But what's really special about these comics is that they're going to act as an access token for people to access comics that are going to be dropping over the next 3 to 4 weeks on Palm, which is really, really cool. So to break that down, let's see if I pulled the other graphic. A little early for that. But basically the way it's broken down is if you own one of these comics, we'll start with the common. You own a common. On June 19th, your account's going to get a screenshot, and then you'll get a whitelist to have an opportunity to buy Wonder Woman. There's a Wonder Woman comic dropping on June 20th. And actually, here, I'll flash forward a little bit. So Wonder Woman #1, future state Wonder Woman #1. On June 22nd, Superman #1 is going to drop. And if you own the uncommon, then you'll get a screenshot on the 21st. So you make sure to buy one before the screenshot happens, and then you'll have access to buy the comic on the 22nd. And so on and so on. So the rare is a Silver Age comic dropping on the 27th, and then the Bronze Age comic the 29th, and then July 6th will be the legendary comic. So you have to own each of these comics to actually have access to buy the comics dropping in the future. Now there's some important things you really need to know about this. The first thing is this comic dropping tomorrow is going to be an open mint for 48 hours. It's going to start on 9 a.m. Pacific time tomorrow, and it's going to end on June 17th at 9 a.m. So you have 48 hours to mint up to 5 per account. You can mint up to 5. Now, something else to keep in mind, you only get 1 whitelist spot per account per drop. So let's say you own like 2 legendary comics, and you want to go for the comic on July 16th and July 6th. You only can use 1 whitelist spot. So the other legendary comic that you do own of this comic, it won't be used for a whitelist. Yeah. So that kind of So that's Batman 608 that's dropping. What's really cool too, what's really special about these comics that are dropping. So each comic dropping over the next couple of weeks are going to have 5 variants within themselves, and these comics are dedicated to different metaverse or the metaverses, essentially different dimensions. So these are the 5 different dimensions that they're going to be focusing on, and each one is dedicated to that comic. So the creative team at Palm and DC, they know these worlds really well, and they thought, okay, what would this comic look like in this world? So these comics are actually, in a way, you're getting a chance to own a comic from different multiverses, which is really cool. It's a really fun concept. Really fun concept. Yeah, especially what's really cool too. And I had my comics in the other room. I forgot to grab them. But Earth 23, on this Earth, Calvin Ellis is the president, and that's actually a comic book that was released a couple of years ago as well. It was a tribute to Barack Obama. And that comic book, there was, I don't know if this movie is going to be made anymore, but J.J. Abrams was apparently going to make a movie based on, I don't know if this character, there's been speculation on some other characters as well, but he was going to be a Black Superman. And it sounded like a really cool concept. They had some really good writers attached. I don't know if it's still going to happen. Hopefully it does. But I'm really excited to see what that looks like. And actually, they released today a video giving a little bit of a teaser of what each comic looks like. So here's the teaser for everybody out there if you haven't seen it. So there's the Wonder Woman comic, Superman 1, Flash 123, the Aquaman comic, and there's Batman 608. Play it one more time. Very cool. So what's the strategy for this? Jason, like, what are you going to do? What's your strategy behind this?
I already know what I'm going to do. But Sean, and I'm thinking out loud here. I know we've chatted about this for days. And so the first thing is I want to thank you for breaking this down. And, folks like Prez and others that have created videos wrapped around this to provide this information for a couple reasons. One, when this thing first dropped, I mean, you know how we were all texting and what's going on? How's this working? And
yeah.
Exciting. And second of all, it was confusing. Like, it took a minute to figure out what it was. And so for you to break this down for everybody, if they don't have a full understanding. Yes, man. So first of all, look, I'm going to max buy. It only makes sense for me for multiple reasons. But you just threw another. So I look at this now as like a poker hand, really. Yeah, there's so many layers and components to this. You literally just threw another kind of layer into the mix. I didn't realize that. Let's just say you got lucky and you landed 5 legendaries. Okay. Mm-hmm. Well, what's the strategy there? It could, do I get into an epic and an uncommon and common, or, etc. Or do I take those 5 legendaries, reduce the legendary population, so I can see, whales being, I shouldn't say smart because I don't know if it's the right decision. Whales going in and buying up the legendary population because they're going to have a better chance to score a legendary because as we chatted earlier, the ultimate goal for me is to get the legendary of the legendary. The population number has to be, it could be 15, it could be 10, yeah. It's going to be a small number. But with what you just said now, the legendary population could shrink based on, folks buying up the legendaries. And then what if there's only 5 legendaries? I mean, yeah. So there's all kinds of different strategies, but I love the way that they're doing. They're making this exciting. They're making this fun. I mean, look at everybody talking about this. Like, I'm excited to get up and get whatever I get. And so yes, I'm buying, and I'm definitely max buying. How about you?
Yeah, and I definitely want to start by saying big shout out to the Palm team. Like, this is a really fun concept, and Jim Lee and the entire DC team as well for putting this together. This is a tremendous amount of work creating all these 30 different variant covers just for this. Well, I guess 4 or 5 drops, but incredible attention to detail. I'm excited to see what they all look like. But as far as strategy, what I'm most excited about is to see what the total numbers are going to be for each variant after the 48 hours, because that's it. That's it. So how many commons there are, that's the only total max editions that are going to be for that Wonder Woman comic across 5 different variants, and so on to the uncommon and rare and epic and legendary. Let's say there's only 250 legendaries that are minted of the Flash Fastest Man Alive #1. That means there can only be 250 total editions for Batman 608 that drops on July 6th, which is crazy. The total edition for that comic is already rare, but within itself with only 250 possible editions. But the legendary is probably going to have like maybe 20 total editions, which screams scarcity. Yeah. So there could be tremendous amount of value in this stuff, and whether you want to keep it as a collector, which is great, or potentially flip and reinvest into other things that you want to buy. There's great value across the market right now. And Jason, you were talking about that earlier. Maybe if you want to dive a little bit into that.
Yeah. So let me add one thing before I go into that, though, because this is such an interesting concept because, we're just talking about the legendaries. Why I think this is such a poker hand is because there's a few. So I think you're going to get the folks that are like the comic purists. They look for the Grail comics, the real obvious purchases, etc., and that's what they're looking at buying. So we may or may not get those folks to buy these comics. And then you look at like the open mints of the past. How many of those have minted? And so I think you're going to get a population of folks that may have slept on some of the ones that of the past, maybe that they weren't expecting them to do as well as they did. I don't think you're going to get a whole lot of like FOMO into this above and beyond. I think it'll be a little bit better, but not crazy. But at the same time, this is going to be really interesting because I think potentially you could get a group of folks that don't mint until closer to the end of the 48 hours. And also we just kind of drive ourselves towards the legendary because of the built-in scarcity. But what happens if, you know, hardly any uncommons pop up, or like somebody buys out the small number of uncommons or commons, etc. And so I think at the it's going to be an interesting, you know, last few hours when the timer runs out, because, you know, you may see that there's a tremendous amount of, you know, the rare ones, but not that many uncommons. And so then you start seeing people buying into the uncommons. And so there's going to be a constant kind of flux that goes along with this. I think you're always going to want the legendary to try to get the legendary. I get it. But it's going to be interesting to see, you know, how many of these get minted out, etc. So
that's such a good point. And we do expect scarcity across the entire board for the next few weeks for a lot of these comics that are dropping, especially with the legendary. But to add to your point, it's very possible we could see a lot less in certain variants that we didn't expect, like the rare or epic, you know, and it's very possible. It's very possible. And for that reason, you know, there could be tremendous value in a lot of these other lower editions in the sense of like rare or uncommon than we expected.
Yeah.
And especially for the uncommon being Superman 1, which is really cool. The homage cover looks really rad. And I just love the idea of these potentially, you know, owning a comic book from a different multiverse. Like, how cool is that? That's so fun. That's so cool.
I do too, especially the different artwork. But and this is complete spec play. But this is a spec play that I actually like push. You know, one of the things that I think is so interesting, and one of the things that I love about the potential here, is that there is a real opportunity for this organization to produce a physical copy of anything that we've seen digital. And so, you know, I personally feel like the Bat Cow comics, I feel like there's a high probability that those will become physical. It just makes sense. Why would they not allow us to have a physical variant? And then you have all of these comics that have special artwork. Why would you imagine if you received the legendary of the legendary and there's only 20 copies? Imagine the possibility of having received that in the physical form if you own the digital version. And that's a real possibility. And so when you look at like your buy-in costs, you know, I mean, it's pretty low for no ceiling essentially. And it's not, you know, it's not even just a spec play that I'm doing. I've actually emailed the folks that run these organizations and said, hey, here's this idea. Are you interested? And I will tell you, I have received responses back. So it's not like this is just a blanket idea I'm throwing out. This is an idea that I've presented, and I may not be the only one, but I'm excited to see these comics come in physical form. And I want all the organizations that that I'm a buyer from to know that I'm interested in that. And so I think it's a real possibility based on some of the responses I've received.
That would be really cool. And especially if somehow they partnered with maybe CGC or CBCS and made exclusive, you know, labels as well. I think physical collectors would be really attracted to that.
Oh,
big time. And this in general, this kind of drop it definitely has drawn attention to some collectors who aren't into NFTs that I know personally. And I said that yesterday on Prez's channel, but I'm so excited for that. And this is the kind of fun dynamic that you need to present to people who don't understand Web3, who don't understand NFTs. And they've done a phenomenal job with this. And I'm so excited for the next few weeks to see how this all plays out. And a big shout out to Andrew Ward, member of the Palm NFT team. And he mentions here, holding multiple flash copies, you know, FMA of a single rarity tier will not give you extra chances to buy in the multiverse sales. So to kind of go back to what we were talking about earlier, you know, there's probably going to be a lot of people who are starting to stack these, you know, in the secondary market, thinking they're going to be able to buy more and more on the initial drop or mint, but that's not the case.
Yeah, and so that'll add an additional layer of, if you're stacking one particular, it it's an interesting game because it limits your opportunities into one of the other variants, but it also shrinks the the number of whatever one you have. So there'll be less opportunities. So that's going to make it very, very interesting. And so I think it's that's going to be a lot of fun. The other cool thing that I think is a possibility, and this is total speculation. I was thinking about it a couple days ago. I was like, what if you had one of each? These are special. These are special comics. What if you had one of each? Is there a possibility of there being something airdropped, or who knows? And so one of the things that I really love about, this project is that there's no limits. They can do whatever they want to. They can create physical versions. They can create physical versions of the Bat Cows. They can drop items. They can create new items. There's no limit. And so, when I see people saying like, oh, this can't be done, or they can't do this, or I'm thinking the complete opposite. They literally can do whatever they want to. And so for me, when you really want to know like where my mindset is on projects that I'm in, so I'm either in or I'm out. It's 100% in, or that's it. Like, I don't get into projects that I'm like 95% in, because to think otherwise to me is a waste of time. Like, I'm super busy. I have too much going on. I'm in and I'm in. I'm not going to question, like, their teams are experts. Teams have been doing this for years. They have all the experts, bigger experts than I can ever imagine. There's plenty of folks sitting around the think tank thinking of all the crazy, like all the stuff we talk about behind the scenes. Trust me, they are probably thinking 10 times the amount of stuff. And so there's so much that can be done. And so I'm in 100% on projects like this. And it's because things can go in any direction. They can do anything that you want. And so I guess my point was, and that was a long way to get to, what I'm trying to do is the projects that I'm excited about and I'm bullish on, which is everyone I'm in, is gather as much real estate and content from those projects as I possibly can. Because when you zoom out, if you look at the numbers of all of the comics that DC has dropped in their NFT format, if you zoom out, you will see that those numbers are small.
Yeah,
they're really tiny.
I agree.
I mean,
I agree.
You have comics that there's like 300 of, like, in existence. What happens when millions of people that are coming into the digital space and collecting digital items, like 300 of an item, 200 of an item, potentially 20 of an item? Look, you know me, I'm pretty transparent about this stuff. So part of me is like, I don't want to do strategies and stuff. But the reality of it is, like, I'm going to gobble up as much digital real estate as I can, digital content as I can, because man, it's just, there's a lot of upside. And at the end of the day, like, if you spend $50 and it doesn't go anywhere, then no big deal. You can go buy a $50 pack of comics at the store and open them up and read it, and that's your entertainment. So
yeah, and especially after seeing the presentation from Apple and seeing what their first generation device looks like. I mean, of course, it was far from flawless. It's a bit bulky. The battery life is low, but the presentation and the capabilities of what it can do in the first generation, my goodness, guys, that is, I've never felt so much validation for the need for the digital ownership in my life than seeing that. And I felt that way for a long time. And I've known that this is going to be something very special over time, and people will start to understand it now more and more as this technology catches up. But it's innovators like Palm NFT and VEVE and these different companies, Cryptoys, they're way ahead of the game. They're way ahead of the game, and they're going to be so far ahead, and the things that they're dropping are going to be so on par with what's being developed and released. It's just it just makes so much sense, And the biggest thing, Jason, you and I've talked about this so many times. Accessibility is such a big deal, and being able to own these comic books, buy, sell, and trade them instantly worldwide, that is a game changer. And that's a big reason why I started to click for me for digital collectibles in the first place. There's horror stories about physical collectibles. There's such a big barrier to entry worldwide to owning physical collectibles. And I have a good friend, he lives in England, and he asked me to. He bought some Pokemon cards and had him shipped to my place because he's like, I don't want to deal with customs for 20 different packages. So he sent them all to my place. I put them in a box and I sent them to him 4 months ago. And about a month ago, he got a message apparently saying he didn't pay for some tariff tax with customs that he didn't know about and he wasn't informed about. And they didn't even give him the option to pay it. They said, we're sending the package back. What? And I haven't gotten it back. That was 4 months ago. That's awful. That's awful. So that's the barrier to entry for a lot of people worldwide to get involved in this space. But digital collectibles, it resolves all of that. I mean, there's still things that need to be worked out for sure. But in the macro, like you mentioned, that the capabilities that these can do, especially like this, interacting with an audience in a way that you can't do in physical format. You can't do it. You can't. It's impossible. This is really special. This is really, really special. And we're in a special time right now to get involved in things like this, especially with massive IP like DC. This is, and especially with James Gunn coming in and taking the helm at DC Films, because I'm a huge James Gunn fan, and I am so excited for his future in DC. And I said this for a while, even though we're seeing like the big grails, we're seeing record sales left and right because comic collectors understand the value of those comics and the scarcity. But at the same time, I still think they're incredibly undervalued because a lot of it is tied to the films. The films have been mediocre at best, over the past 10 years compared to Marvel. But I think that's going to change, and people's feelings about DC are going to change. And a lot of it's going to have to do with James Gunn. He's got a lot of pressure right on his shoulders, and I'm cautiously optimistic that he's. I'm a very optimistic person in general, but some would say overly optimistic. But yeah. But I'm just so excited for what he's doing and his vision for the future of DC Films. It's just going to help. Kevin did a fantastic video recently, and he talked about why we believe James Gunn, could potentially help not just the IP, but also your collectibles, because a lot of the Marvel comics, they saw a huge boost in prices because of the popularity of the MCU. And right now you can expect the same thing with DC in the future. So something to keep your eye on. And I'm not saying go out and, buy everything left and right. Always stay within your budget, but never overextend yourself. But there's a lot of opportunity right now. A lot of opportunity. And I mean, I don't want to I don't want to get off too much off topic, but man, how is Showcase number 4 only $300 as a legendary comic? I have to say that. Like, that is insane. Like, what the heck, man? That's that's crazy. That comic is a huge grail, and there's only 500 copies on the CGC census.
Next year, we're going to be looking at that and going, why did we not buy every single one? I really believe that. Next year, we're going to be looking back and saying, why didn't we not buy every single one?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and I'm very curious too how people are going to assess the scarcity, because of the scarcity, the potential of these comics, how people are going to value them, and whether or not you want to keep as a collector, as a potential flipper, there could be some really serious opportunity. And like you mentioned, I've flipped a few things. I've learned how to flip a little bit better, especially from you, Jason. Thank you so much, because liquidity is so important, and it's always important to have extra funds on standby and be patient and sit on it until you find a good opportunity. And I've been lucky enough to have that opportunity. I just bought my 4th Bat-Cal recently, and I'm looking to buy more Bat-Cals because I just believe in this project so much. I'm so excited for the future of Bat-Cals and just the leadership team and everything that they've delivered so far. It's been incredible. And how hands-on Jim Lee is with this too. I mean, he's extremely hands-on. The president of DC is incredibly hands-on. This is his project, him and Palm NFT. They've done something really special here.
Yep. One of the strategies that I've employed in pretty much every project that I'm in, but specifically this one, is just being patient.
Yeah.
When we look at this project, it's only like 12, 13 months old. I purchased 2 cows. I'm not wealthy. I can't go out there and just buy anything I want to. I purchased 2 cows when I first started, and maybe a couple things at the very beginning, but just through patience over time, which has not been that long, I just purchased my 4th cowl. I have I don't know how many comics I have, 50, 60 something comics, or how, you know, I've got duplicates of some. I've got a lot of comics. I've got a lot of digital items, and I have a big chunk you know, of money that's sitting in there as well. All from just 2 cows from the beginning, and now I've got 4. And just through patience, you know, I've gotten lucky and won some good legendaries, and you know, maybe dollar cost average into some other things. And I think that this is an opportunity for folks that are you know, not looking to be overnight millionaires off a $10 drop. If you're patient, you can just slowly grow over time, and you know, a year or 2 years down the road, it can be very significant. And I think this is a good opportunity. I think this is a phenomenal opportunity, because it's when you go into these comic drops, you're like, oh, I hope I get a legendary. But in this scenario, there's no comic. Like, I'm okay with anyone, because what if you get the legendary of the common and it becomes the low, you know, and it has a scarce number? First of all the comic covers are awesome. They really are amazing. Second of all, there's opportunity for built-in scarcity no matter what you get. And so it's going to be, this is going to be such a fun one to play out. And, you know, I think there'll be opportunities. Like for me, I feel like there's opportunities for me. If I, you know, get lucky, I might be able to, you know, increase my bat cows or something like that. Very realistic opportunity. And because of the way that I've approached this from the very beginning, honestly, like any of these things that I'm going to be buying is already, I hate to say house money, but it's house money. It's that are sitting there that, you know, I was able to slowly build up over time.
And that's the kind of situation you want to be in. You never want to overextend yourself. You know, playing with house money is always be a great position, because it's not your own at that point. You know, and Mr. Jones brings up a great question. Do we go for scarcity or popularity? This has been a conversation that we've talked about for over 2 years. And you know, scarcity is important. Don't get me wrong, but popularity is so important. Popularity and relevance. That is number one, in my opinion. You know, again, scarcity is important because it's all about market caps. You know, you look at the highest market caps right now for physical comic books, and Ultimate Fallout 4 is definitely up there. You know, first appearance of Miles Morales, it's reaching almost 20,000 graded comics. There's over 5,000 9.8s, but it's still $1,500 floor, down from the $3,500 all-time high. But that comic is so popular, so popular. So it has a higher market cap than a lot of grails in their highest grade, which sell for, you know, 500,000 plus. So again, it's important to keep that in mind. You know, when you buy into scarcity, entirely into scarcity, I've seen people get burned, and it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing. So again, none of this financial advice, but you know, it's something to keep in mind. Something to keep in mind. At least like pay attention to the market and understand, and you'll probably see what I'm talking about right now.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. I've actually, like you and I were chatting about earlier, I've changed some of my physical collectible strategy. You know, beforehand I'm a bit of a completionist. Like if I play video games, it'll take me 5 hours to get out of the opening world that people glaze through in 5 minutes, because I want to look at every corner, nook and cranny, and crack, etc. Make sure I don't leave anything unturned. And the same with the collectibles for me. So I would collect like all of the games in a certain, console, or collect everything and try to complete the set. And over time, you see that some games actually went down significantly in value, and then some games went like unbelievably up in value. And generally speaking, the ones that have gone extremely up in value are the really, really popular ones. Some of the scarce ones have gone up in value, but I will tell you that over time, the popularity has dominated the scarcity. I have video games that are so scarce, they're not really in demand. People don't even know they exist, and they're not terribly expensive, although there might only be like 10 copies of them in existence.
Yeah.
You bring out the Zeldas and the Marios, and your comic book example is a great example. Popularity really is extremely important.
Yeah, it's a much safer play, in my opinion. because the demand, right? And even for that, like the video game that you mentioned, there's only 10. There's the same thing with comic books. There's some comics that only have like 50 comics on the CGC census, sometimes only like 10, but it's $100, 9.0 or 9.4 comic, in its highest grade, because the demand just isn't there, even with something that's insanely scarce. So insanely scarce. So yeah, again, it's just really important to understand the market, understand what people are, what's in high demand right now. Just do your own research, guys. The more you put into this stuff, the more you understand as an investor. You collect what you love, but even if you collect what you love, make sure you do it, within a budget. You got to make sure you don't overextend yourself, because it's very easy to do that with digital collectibles. Because physical collectibles, you start looking around at real estate, right, in your place, in your house, and you start thinking to yourself, "Oh man, I got to get insurance now. I got to think about where I'm going to store this stuff." So there's only so much room you can have. But digital collectibles, I mean, you can have 1,000 collectibles just in your phone, and carry that around with you always. So yeah, I mean, this going back to this drop, as a collector, I'm excited to see what these other variations are going to look like. I think it's really fun. But I will say that there is probably potential opportunity here because of the scarcity, that people buy into the scarcity. One of the things that I'm thinking about, like for the legendary, for example, on July 6th, that one could potentially be incredibly scarce. And again, look at the numbers. Look at the numbers, the final numbers that are minted in 48 hours, and you'll get a good sense of how many total additions could potentially happen. Because remember, some people might be stacking 5 or 6 on a drop, thinking that they can mint more than one. But I think by the time the legendary happens on July 6th, the Batman 608 copy, people will start to understand how this process. And you could potentially see a FOMO into the legendary copy of Fastest Man Alive #1 right before the drop. It's potentially could see that. So something to keep in mind. Just keep your eye on the market. See how things are going. See where the prices are at. And there could be an opportunity here, even as an investor potentially. And again, not financial advice. I have to keep saying that. It's such a habit.
I have a question for you. So you've got these 5 books that are getting ready to drop. What do you hope? I'm assuming you're probably going to get all 5, or max out 5. What are you hoping to get from are you hoping to get one of each? What do you hope to get?
I really do think the legendary is going to have the most scarce total editions. I think that just makes the most sense in terms of the math, but I definitely want to get one of each. I think getting one of each and potentially a legendary could be really cool. Maybe even 2 epics as well, because I think they're probably going to see a slight bump closer towards the drop for that reason. People understanding the process more. You potentially could see that. But again, keep your eye on the market, see how things are going. But I definitely plan to do 5 and just go for 5 and see what happens. But yeah, I definitely want to get probably 2 legendaries and pursue that strategy.
So let's just say you get a legendary in one of your 5. If you get 2 of one of the other variants, which one will you be more apt to? Well, actually, you know what? I guess you can buy as many on the aftermarket. You can only retail. Yeah. You can only get 5 retail, but you can stack as many as you want to.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah. See, that's the thing, right? You can mint 5, but you can keep buying like legendaries if they're under $100 or whatever price they end up being. It just depends how many total are minted. And Joe Powell asked a question: how many do you think will go for the drop tomorrow? And Mad Magazine #1 was, or Mad #1 was 7K. So this should be more popular, right? Yeah. I mean, I think also just the strategy behind it. I think people are going to understand it more over the next day. But as far as how many total, man, it's probably, I think 10,000 is potentially, we're going to see that number. That's a fair number, but it just comes down to how many people are going to keep minting, it really comes down to that. But I'm excited to keep my eyes on the numbers that are being minted, because you'll get a good idea of how much of each comic that's going to be dropping over the next 2 weeks, how many total editions there potentially could be. Because remember, even if there's like 250 legendaries, if everybody doesn't go for that drop, and they have multiples in their hand, those aren't going to be minted.
Yeah.
So I think people might miss the mark on that.
Mechanism, really, like an upfront burn mechanism built in.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I don't know what the timeline is as far as the drops. I think I'm not sure. Actually, I'm curious about that. If anyone out there knows, like how long the time limit is for, let's say the common is dropped, how much time will people have to mint until it stops? That's actually a good question to find out as well. If anyone out there knows, love to know that one. Soda Bob, what's up, bud? Yeah. Do you have any rules for buying and selling? Like always buying 3, buying on red days, etc. It really comes down to the comic or collectible as dropping. You know, it's the strategy just varies depending on what's being dropped. For me personally, I mean, if it's something that's really popular, you know, it's only one. You know, you only could potentially get one. You can get another one in the secondary. If it's really, really special and it's within my budget, I like to get at least 2. You know, the David U strategy I love, but you know, it's not always feasible if you're within a budget. But you buy one to keep, buy one to sell, and buy one to trade, which I love that strategy. But if it's within your budget and the strategy makes sense, awesome. But yeah,
and part of it also is a little bit of luck. You know, so so I maxed out the most recent epic opportunity. And I was lucky because out of all of those, I think I pulled like 5 epics and a legendary. And I also sold the epics at the top.
You're lucky on these drops. And you always get low mint numbers too.
Yeah.
I always say group text.
Yeah, like number 8.
Yeah, dude.
So that was luck. That was a lot of luck. But I was able to get into a bat cow based on, and I think a lot of people, I don't think the epic one was quite as exciting as this one. And so I think, you know, not as many people got in the last one, but, you know, with a little bit of luck, it turned into an additional bat cow for me.
I love that. See, there you go. That's exactly right. You know, what we talked about earlier, you know, you were able to get lucky and you got some stuff that you could sell and you turn that into another bat cow, which is incredible. And thank you, Andrew Ward, for confirming that. So it's 48 hours for fastest man alive and then 24 hours for all the multiverse drops, which is
cool.
Awesome. That's great. That's fantastic. So thank you appreciate you clarifying that. And he also added fastest man alive will be an open edition. The sizes for the multiverse drops will be set, so everyone who's eligible will be able to mint within the 24-hour window. Perfect. Yeah. So that's exactly what we were talking about. Fantastic.
That's a goal for you to tweet out.
What's that?
That's a good poll for you to tweet out. Over under.
I like that. No, I'll do that today. I like that. That's a really cool idea. Thank you, Jason. That's great.
I'm gonna go. You know, I don't know. This is such a cool thing.
It's super fun.
I mean, even if 10K of these go, which is great, I hope they do go. Still, that legendary of the legendary is going to be, woo.
Yeah, I mean that's, man. I don't know if we'll see more than 300 of this one minted of the legendary. And let's just say hypothetically, if that does happen, 300, you only have 300 possible mints for minting for the total editions across all the comics for Batman 608 on July 6th, which is crazy to think about. I mean, you could have some other, and that actually brings up what we were saying earlier about some of the variants being more scarce than others because there's so many few that are minted. You could see like maybe, you know, you could see potentially an epic being more scarce than a legendary.
Yep.
It's possible. It's very possible.
Which makes it cool because any of these could be the one.
Yeah.
It's excitement no matter which one of these you get.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And Mohammed has a question. So all drops are open edition? No. So this drop, specifically the fastest man alive #1, it's a 48-hour window. You can mint up to 5 comics per account. And you have 48 hours to do that. And then if you don't land any specific variants that you're looking for, you can buy it in the secondary marketplace. And then each drop that's happening in the next couple weeks, you have 24 hours to mint one. You can only mint one. So if you have multiple commons or multiple uncommons, you only can mint once. So keep that in mind, guys. It's very important to know that moving forward because I just know there's going to be a lot of people stacking these thinking they're going to mint like 20 of the comic on July 6th, and that's not the case. That's not the case. So very important to keep that in mind when you're strategizing for this. So being a poker hand, Jason, the poker analogy, did you show all your cards or what? You showing us all your cards?
I think I have. I mean, I feel like I have. I do want to step back in the macro, because you and I were chatting about this earlier, and you thought would be good to bring this up. You know, I kind of look at this thing. So in the long, I think that this project in general and this drop in general is going to be it's going to be a very, very positive long play for me. But when you get into traditional investing or speculating or whatever you want to call it, you know, the challenge is the long, people think like 10 years out. You're always looking at your 401ks and your investments like, what's this going to do 15, 20, 25 years from now? And so I think like when people like me say, oh, this is a long-term play, it's different in this world, in this space. You have people that are in the short, and the short could be like 6 hours from now. And then, but really the long is not as long as you think. And so like, I'm always saying that I'm trying to gobble up as much content, digital real estate as I possibly can. And the reason that I am is because I am a big believer in the halving, and what the Bitcoin halving, if you're not a crypto investor, if you're not familiar with the halving, I would definitely recommend do your own research and just look into it, what the halving is. What the halving does for the crypto bull market is undeniable and indisputable. It's data on a graph, and it is what it is. We can't argue it one way or the other. It literally is what it is. And so we have the halving coming up in now April of 2024. And at the inception of each halving, the bull run, it just goes through the roof. Look at the increase in Bitcoin. And so my thought process is that the halving is going to bring in a tremendous amount of money into the space across the board. Whether you think it's a manipulation or whether you think it's natural, it doesn't matter. The reality of it is that my thought process is there's going to be a ton of money that comes into the space. And that's everything. Like, that's crypto, that's NFTs, that's digital collectibles. People are going to come, you know, especially because we're always saying we're early. And then when you look at the numbers that these companies are releasing, and I think a lot of companies, and this is not speculation just based on me buying digital collectibles. I talk to a lot of organizations, you know, in my job about like, you know, what they're doing wrapped around different technologies. And I think like companies right now are in not necessarily total survival mode, but companies are not being aggressive about this stuff because you don't know how long the bear market's going to last. We don't know the future of the economy. We all know what kind of a situation we're in. So companies I think are doing this tentatively. And you can see that there's in the projects that I'm in, there's a lot of, relatively speaking, low numbers of digital collectibles or items or whatever the case may be. But if you take those and you overlay them into a bullish scenario, a bullish market, a bullish scenario, you realize that it's such a tiny little amount. In the next iterations of these bull markets, like, we're not going to be in a bear market for the rest of our lives. Mm-hmm. The history of all the markets, there's bull markets, there's bear markets, there's bull markets. It goes up and down and up and down.
Especially in crypto.
Yeah.
It's funny because people who've been involved in crypto for a while, this was nothing new to them. This is the time to accumulate, like the projects that I'm excited about. And then you look at like this project in particular, because we're talking about this, you think like, if you believe that the bull market is going to be next year, which in my mindset, I'm just buying stuff until next year. Anything I buy, let's see what happens in Q2 next year. We'll figure it out and make a decision there. But I feel like everything now is on a mega discount. It's cheap. It's on sale. And so you just accumulating and gobbling this stuff as much as you can. Like I said, I'm not a wealthy guy. I'm not super rich, so I'm not able to go in and drop, you know, tens of thousands. I can't buy a CryptoPunk for cheap or a Bored Ape for super cheap because I just don't have that, you know, that type of cash to do that. If you can, I think, man, that's great because you're going to really accelerate what happens next year. But like, if you're smart about it, you're getting, let's just say you can only buy one of these. You can only spend $10. And
Who can't spend $10 on one of these if you're in the space? So just get one, $10. And the cool thing is, for the person who can only buy one, you're not limited at all. Because if you get a common, what if you get a legendary on the next? You know, you have the opportunity to get a legendary in the next one. Or if you get a common, it becomes the legendary. I mean, that's what's so cool about this. But I really think, like, all of these things, adding also, when you add it to the fact that these, you know, DC, who knows what is on the roadmap. I mean, we only have Batcows right now. Look at all the peripherals that can go along with just Batman. Like, anything can be released. All kinds of Bat utility belts, like suits, gadgets, the, you know, vehicles. Like, just with Batman alone, there's probably a trillion ideas. That doesn't even include all of the other characters that can be implemented, all of the other trinkets, all of the other comics. I mean, you name it. It can keep going and going. I mean, it's a huge universe. They've been around forever for a reason. And so, you know, the sky's the limit. And it's cool that, you know, whoever's here, we're all in the very early phases. And on a scale of 1 to 10, you know, or on a scale of 1 to 1,000, how bullish am I and how worried am I about this project? I'm 1,000 and I'm zero worry. Like, I don't think about it. Even if I get a comic that is a $1 comic on the market right now, I don't care. I'll hold it, because I feel like in the future it'll be $15 or $20.
Especially if it's a popular comic, you know, a very significant comic, especially, you know, and that's the biggest thing too. You know, I've thought about during the last bull run, you know, people are buying everything, and really at that time you couldn't lose, you know, even if it was some random project, you know, people were just buying into everything. But, you know, a lot of those projects that were developed and that are around today probably aren't going to last long, because people bought into it, and they probably have weak communities in IP that's not well known. But that's what's really special about what Palm NFT and DC are doing, and especially with Palm working with Warner Brothers. I mean, they have so much IP, so many characters to work with. And it's all under one roof, which is kind of cool, because, you know, when you're a company and you work with a lot of different licensors, it gets really complicated. But Palm working directly with Warner Brothers, you're able to expedite the process probably a lot, and you're able to work on things and develop things that a lot of people aren't doing. Like this, for example, there was a lot of work that was put into this, a lot of work, and I'm very I
was just going to say, you bring up a ridiculously excellent point. I mean, think about it. You were saying people were making hand over fist on garbage. Yeah. Everything was making you tons and tons of money. And at that time, 3% of the world's population was into crypto and NFTs and digital collectibles and anything wrapped around Web3. 3%, that's it.
Yeah.
What happens in the next bull market to things with amazing IP, which are, I mean, the highest IPs on the planet, the most popular stuff? It's also scarce. I mean, I don't know. You know, the sky is the limit.
And that's why for the next bull run, I think licensed IP, popular IP, is going to make a significant impact in Web3, a significant impact. And it's companies like Palm, like VEVE, like Cryptoys. Yeah, it's it's so exciting, the things that they're doing and releasing with these really massive partners that are known worldwide. And again, it all goes back to accessibility. You know, just buying things with it, and also simplicity. I mean, I could sell my parents up for Palm, and they bought a bat cow over the phone. My mom barely knows how to use, you know, her cell phone, you know, and she was able to log in, get an account. She doesn't have to worry about MetaMask. She doesn't have to worry about, you know, her NFTs being stolen. It's on a centralized platform, that's a whole different topic. But that's a big deal. That's a big deal. The barrier to entry is a lot less when it's so simple to sign up for something and buy it, especially when it's something that people already love and understand. You know, people who love Batman and love DC, they're going to buy into this. They're excited about this. There's millions and millions of fans worldwide that love DC. And I think the popularity, especially James Gunn, is going to grow. It's going to continue to grow. But there was actually a point that Prez brought up earlier So potentially there might be 2 max per account. Prez, could you give me some clarification on that? And you have a chance? I'm curious if it's 2 or 1 you can mint in the coming weeks of each comic, because I definitely might change my strategy. But I think it's still being decided.
I'll be max buying the max buy, whatever that is. That's my strategy.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll make an announcement. Okay, I appreciate that. Thanks, Prez, and thank you, Andrew, for clarifying that. So potentially it might be 2. It might be 2. So again, just keep your eye out before the drop tomorrow. I'm sure they'll make an announcement on their social media. But yeah, that could be the case, which is really, really cool.
Sean, one thing that you and I chat about, and I know that you get it, we always kind of laugh and joke around, and we're like, oh, we're so early, we're so early, we're so early. That I was telling you earlier, one of the things when I was giving the board presentation, and these are with business owners, these are 25 business owners up in the New York area that run companies. Some of them are very big companies. In the presentation, one of the things I was talking about, I put in the Apple spatial computer AR glasses, and they were all like, what is Apple spatial computer? None of you guys watched it. Did you not tune into what Apple was? No, they didn't. And every time, all I think of is, man, I know that we're in the space. We talk about it all day, every day. And whether you're a fudder or a bullish guy, it doesn't matter. We're in the space. So I think we kind of take it for granted that so many people are not in the space and they're not privy to any of this stuff. And all of these things help with, adoption of these technologies. But like, that just smacked me again. Like, Jason, you are early. You're so early. Yeah. None of these folks know what any of this stuff is. When they do, what percentage of them are going to think it's cool? Some of them are, and that's going to cause more people to come into the market and the space and buy these things and invest in these things. But that point you made earlier about the physical stuff, like, I'll be the one to tell you, I think about it all the time. What happens if there's a fire? What happens if there's rain gets in the house, or a theft or anything? Like, I can tell you firsthand that if there's something crazy that happens in my house, yes, I'm going to try to save as many of these bad boys as I can, but like, which ones and how quickly can I act out? And
scary stuff.
No worries. And I don't really, I know we have the arguments of, interoperability and custody and all that stuff, but I don't worry about these at all. They're in my pocket. So yeah,
definitely. Prez asked the question, what do you think it should be, 1 or 2? Should people be allowed to mint 1 or 2? And I mean, 2 just gives people more opportunity. There'll be more total editions. It'll be less scarce. But I think 1 will make things a lot more interesting. I'm personally leaning towards 1, but I think 2's fine as well. I mean, you're still going to see pretty scarce stuff, and just give more people opportunity to have fun. So, and this is a strategy that they're excited to see how it plays out, how people are going to enjoy it, and I think people are going to enjoy it and respond to it really well.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Now, I was just going to say, I hope it's 1. I hope it's 1, and I
do too.
There'll be a lot of, you know what? Look, you need to be. If you miss out on stuff like this, you need to be smacked. Like, you miss out, dude, and it's 1.
Yeah.
How many times do you have to miss out until you learn? And that's why I think it needs to be 1.
I mean, a good example is the recent drop that happened. It was the comic that was dropped for BatCal owners only, and that was really scarce because a lot of BatCal owners slept on it, and including myself. I didn't mint for it, and that was one of my biggest mistakes I ever made. It was a cool comic. I was actually super busy that week, so I didn't really put my whole full head into it. But I regret not getting involved. Mostly as an investor. Geez Louise, those things soared like crazy. But also, I mean, they're cool comics, and now they're just way outside my price range. But yeah, but to add to your point about being early, there's a really cool example that I saw, and I'm sure you know this, Jason. Back in 1994, the founder of Microsoft, Bill Gates, was on David Letterman, and David Letterman asked him, do you know what this whole internet thing is? Do you know what the internet is? And he said, yeah, oh, I know it. And he asked the audience, and everyone's like, no, I don't know what the internet is. I have no idea. And he went on to explain what the internet is. It's it's an online source of information where people can share. And, and David Levin brought up a point. It said he heard that people can listen to a baseball game. It's going to be broadcast on this internet thing, and people can listen to it. And he goes on to mock it and said, have you heard of the radio? And then you cut 20 years later, 25, 30 years later, you cut to Jimmy Fallon, and he's talking to Paris Hilton. And he asked Paris Hilton, what's an NFT? Do you know what an NFT is? And she's like, yeah, I know what an NFT is. And asked the audience, do you know what an NFT is? No, no one knows. No one knows. And she goes on, and she actually gave a great explanation of what an NFT is. And he still didn't understand it. He's like, I don't know if I want to buy into it. A couple weeks later, she comes back on the show. And because she showed one of her Bored Apes that she got. And he ended up buying a Bored Ape because he explained it to her, like what it means to the community, what the community's like. I'm sure there's a lot of other reasons behind it, but ultimately he started talking about his Bored Ape that he got. And it was a Bored Ape with like these heart glasses, and it had a sailor hat, and it had this specific type of shirt on. And he described the personal connection that he had to it. He says, I wear these glasses for my daughter. I love to sail. So he was describing it like a collector. He was going in as a collector. He had the collector's mindset going into this because it had that personal connection. It had that nostalgia. And I thought that was a really special moment. And history repeating itself. Yeah. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun, guys. Like, this is going to be a really fun drop. I'm really excited for this. Make sure just to, if anything changes in terms of how many could potentially be minted over the next few weeks, just make sure to follow DCNFT on Twitter for most update information. Follow Palm NFT. And yeah, best of luck, everybody. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to either of us. We're happy to ask or answer any questions that you have. Make sure to follow Jason at UpUp Crypto. Amazing guy. Love you, Jason. You're the best. Seriously. And of course,
doing these things.
And of course, go see The Flash coming June 16th. Go see it. I've heard great things. Some people, some co-hosts of the podcast aren't too thrilled about it, but we'll see.
Oh, really?
I thought it was really interesting. It was hearing some feedback from people that have seen it early. Like Tom Cruise saw it apparently, and he loved it. And you never hear like reviews from celebrities or people that have seen the film early. And apparently Stephen King saw it, that guy is brutally honest about everything.
He's tough.
As we know, he's tough. I mean, especially when it comes to his own films. But he hates superhero films. He doesn't like them. And he actually really enjoyed this film.
Oh, wow.
Which I thought was,
yeah.
I mean, I thought that was pretty cool. It was pretty cool.
He's really harsh critic on a lot of things.
And this comic ends in a couple hours, guys. If you're interested at all and keep an eye on this, could potentially be another record sale. We'll see. This comic, man, I mean, it really doesn't get much better than this, guys. This is a very special and historical auction happening right now at Golden. And also, remember our giveaway. Get involved. Go on Twitter right now. We have it pinned to the top of our page. And win these cards. I'm excited to send these off.
It's so easy. You hit a button and hit a button. That's it.
Yeah. And big shout out to our collaborator on the giveaway, Metaverse Life. And it's been fun sending these collectibles out and seeing people posting them and seeing how they enjoy them. We've sent cards out recently and people responded. I'm so excited to give this to my daughter or give this to my son. He's a huge Miles Morales fan. That's special, man. That's what this is all about. And that's why we're really pressuring ourselves to be consistent with these giveaways, because we really want people to enjoy these collectibles, especially since they're probably new to a lot of these markets. So yeah, get involved in that. And we have some more really fun giveaways planned ahead. So we've got weeks and weeks ahead of giveaways that we planned out. And we're actually planning another special one for Comic-Con as well, end of July, which I know we're going to be meeting up. I'm very excited for that. We're accepted as press. We're going to be going as press covering Comic-Con. And we're looking to potentially do some really cool giveaways during the Comic-Con event as well.
Awesome.
But thank you so much for joining, everybody. I really appreciate you all. Thank you so much for joining. And Jason, as always, you're the man.
Bye, everybody. Thanks for listening in.
Bye, everyone. Thanks so much.